The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the SEAL training base's mess hall, catching the sheen of stainless steel trays and the faint glimmer of metals pinned to fatigues. The air smelled of strong coffee, scrambled eggs, and freshly toasted bread, mingling with the faint tang of adrenaline that clung to the trainees. Laughter and chatter echoed off the walls, a chaotic orchestra of voices that carried the usual mix of bravado, teasing, and camaraderie. Some recruits argued over football scores, others swapped stories about the previous day's grueling drills. At the far corner of the hall, sitting a little apart, was Petty Officer Harper. She moved deliberately, quietly, scanning the room without looking nervous. Her uniform was crisp, her posture perfect, yet her eyes betrayed a quiet intensity. She was small for a SEAL, barely 5'7", with a lean, athletic frame, but there was something about her presence that demanded attention. Harper wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. Those who knew her, or even glimpsed her, understood immediately that she carried a confidence that only came from experience, from surviving the impossible. Lieutenant Daniels, a grinning SEAL with the kind of arrogance that came with being in the top percentile of his class, spotted her immediately. He sauntered over, tray in hand, shoulders relaxed as if he owned the room. The other SEALs at nearby tables watched, anticipating what was about to unfold. Harper had been at the base for just under 2 months, and despite the whispers about her previous missions, most still treated her like a rookie, untested and green. "Hey, rookie," Daniels called, loud enough to carry over the hubbub. "Mind reminding me of your rank again?" His voice dripped playful mockery. He leaned against the table, arms crossed, the smirk on his face daring her to flinch. The room immediately reacted, snickers, subtle glances, the casual, teasing vibe that permeated every mess hall interaction. Harper looked up slowly, her dark eyes meeting Daniels with a steady, unyielding gaze. The chatter softened, curiosity and tension rippling through the tables nearby. Even the cooks behind the serving line paused for a heartbeat, sensing something in the air. The hall, usually filled with the clatter of trays and the hum of conversation, felt suddenly smaller, quieter. Every SEAL present felt it, the sudden weight of expectation. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a measured breath, letting silence stretch, letting the tension build. Her hand rested lightly on her tray, the motion casual, almost lazy, but her eyes told a different story, alert, calculating, commanding. She knew what everyone expected, a sheepish, timid acknowledgement, maybe a joke to diffuse the attention. But Harper wasn't about diffusing attention. She was about commanding it subtly with precision. Daniel's smirk faltered ever so slightly. "Well," he prompted, his voice betraying just a hint of impatience. Around him, a few recruits leaned in, trying to catch what would undoubtedly be the standard rookie response. Some were ready to laugh at whatever embarrassment might follow. Others, quieter, were genuinely curious. Rumors about Harper had circulated since her arrival, brief whispers of a rookie who had done things that were classified, feats so dangerous and so unusual they couldn't be discussed openly. Most dismissed them as exaggerations. Harper was still just another name on the roster. She leaned back just slightly, maintaining a casual air, and then spoke, calmly, clearly, with a tone that made everyone in the mess hall straighten, listen, and pause mid-bite. "I outrank you in experience." The room froze. Snickers died mid-laughter. Trays clattered slightly as hands paused in mid-motion. Daniel's smirk vanished entirely, replaced with an expression that hovered between shock and disbelief. A few SEALs blinked rapidly, as if the words hadn't registered immediately. The air seemed to tighten, heavy with surprise. Harper's gaze didn't waver. It locked onto Daniel's, unwavering, challenging, unflinching. Whispers started soft, incredulous, spreading through the hall like wildfire. "Did she just experience? That doesn't make sense. Who does she think she is?" The questions hung in the air, unanswered because no one in the room had a clue. Not fully. Harper's calm, deliberate declaration shattered the familiar mess hall rhythm, replacing it with a sudden, almost reverent curiosity. Flashbacks, unspoken but felt in the room's collective imagination, seemed to rise around her. Those who knew a fraction of her past understood immediately what she implied. Missions in Afghanistan where she had led squads under fire, orchestrated rescues under impossible odds, faced ambushes, and lived to complete the objective. Rapid promotions that skipped the usual bureaucratic hurdles, earned purely by merit, courage, and results. But none of this was officially discussed in the hall. Certainly not among the rookies who hadn't earned their seats at her table. Daniels finally opened his mouth to reply, to regain control of the room with a quip, a laugh, something. But before words could escape him, Commander Reynolds, a towering figure of authority and legend within the SEAL ranks, entered the mess hall. Every head instinctively turned. The chatter, already fatting, now completely died. Reynolds' eyes scanned the room, and for a moment, even the loudest seals felt like small boys in a classroom. Harper's gaze shifted subtly to meet Reynolds for the briefest instant. No fear, no arrogance, only quiet, unshakable confidence. The tension in the room shifted again, this time with a new layer: anticipation. The seals now waited not just on Harper's words, but on the reaction of a man whose approval or disapproval could define a career. Daniels swallowed, his jaw tight, suddenly aware of the invisible history and weight Harper carried. Around them, the mess hall had become a stage. Forks and trays seemed to hover in midair. The usual morning chaos had been replaced by something heavier, more charged. A rookie had spoken two simple words, but in them lay the power of experience, authority, and a hint of legend. Harper sat calm, almost amused, as all eyes fixed on her. The room's heartbeat seemed to synchronize with her breathing. She knew the power of silence, of timing, of presence. And she also knew that the day had only just begun, and the challenge waiting beyond the mess hall doors would test every ounce of the experience she had so effortlessly announced. Commander Reynolds stopped a few feet from Harper, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The mess hall had gone silent, save for the faint hiss of the ventilation system and the soft rustle of trays. Seals frozen mid-bite stared, eyes wide, trying to gauge the situation. Daniels, still reeling from Harper's audacious remark, "I outrank you in experience," shifted uneasily, his confident grin replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Reynolds' gaze was sharp, piercing. He had seen rookies bluff their way through training before, but Harper wasn't bluffing. Her posture, her calm tone, the faint glint in her eyes, all signaled she spoke truth. "Explain yourself, Petty Officer Harper," Reynolds said, voice steady but demanding. The room felt heavier, as though the walls themselves leaned in to hear her answer. The other SEALs exchanged glances, unsure whether to breathe or move. Some silently cursed the interruption, others were rooted in awe. Harper met his gaze without hesitation. "Sir," she began, voice low but confident, "I've completed multiple high-risk missions in Afghanistan, led squads under fire, coordinated extractions, and earned rapid promotions due to operational performance. My deployments were outside the normal rotation, missions most officers never encounter. I didn't come here to boast. I'm here to serve." The mess hall went even quieter. A spoon clattered to the floor somewhere in the back, echoing like a gunshot. Daniels' jaw dropped slightly. He tried to formulate a response, but words caught in his throat. Whispers started spreading like wildfire. "Afghanistan? Rapid promotions? She's serious." Harper didn't falter. She knew every eye was on her, some skeptical, some impressed, some jealous, but she refused to break her composure. Each word was carefully measured, projecting authority without arrogance. She was demonstrating what experience truly meant. Not rank, not medals, not chatter, but results under pressure, courage under fire, and the ability to make decisions that saved lives. Daniels, still struggling to regain control of the room, leaned back in his chair. He glanced around. Senior SEALs had stopped eating entirely, their eyes scanning Harper with respect they rarely reserved for a rookie. Even some of the younger trainees who had mocked her earlier were now staring, wide-eyed and silent, trying to comprehend how someone so new to the base could command such presence. Reynolds studied her for a long moment. He had seen many high-performing SEALs, had trained alongside them, had watched their courage and their failures. He could recognize skill, instinct, and bravery instantly. Harper had all three, but what impressed him more than her past missions was her composure under scrutiny, the way she handled the entire mess hall without raising her voice, without theatrics. She didn't need to prove herself here. She had already proven herself where it mattered most. "You're confident," Reynolds said, tone neutral. "And competent by the sound of it, but competence alone doesn't earn respect here. Actions do. And history?" He paused, glancing around the hall. "History speaks volumes." Harper nodded, subtly acknowledging the weight of his words. Around the room, SEALs whispered to each other. They were witnessing a rare phenomenon, a new recruit, one they expected to falter or stumble, commanding the attention and silent respect of veterans. It wasn't common. In fact, it was almost unprecedented. Daniels finally broke the silence, attempting to regain his bravado. "Well, that's impressive, I guess," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. "But missions aside, it's still day-to-day operations here that count. You can't just walk in and expect." Harper interrupted calmly, her voice carrying a subtle authority that silenced him instantly. "I'm not claiming to expect anything. I'm simply stating that my experience has prepared me for what comes next." Day-to-day operations here are standard. What I've faced before is not." The words hung in the air, and even Daniels had to pause. His smirk had completely disappeared, replaced by a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. The other SEALs began to murmur quietly, assessing Harper differently now, their opinions shifting in real time. Reynolds remained silent, observing, letting the hall digest the truth. Harper's past was classified, yes, but the aura of skill, calm, and authority she radiated was undeniable. The whispers continued, soft but persistent. "She led missions. She's been in firefights. How can someone so new have done all that?" Harper felt every glance, every thought, and remained composed. She had learned long ago that presence could speak louder than words. Confidence under scrutiny was a skill few mastered, yet here she was, in a room full of men trained to handle pressure, and she had shifted the dynamic entirely. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the hall changed again. A subtle shift, almost imperceptible, but those who had served longer noticed it immediately. The usual morning chaos, the casual laughter, the teasing had vanished. The room had collectively recognized something. Harper wasn't just another rookie. She was someone who had faced real danger, survived it, and emerged unshaken. And now, that past experience gave her authority. Just as the tension began to settle, the sharp, insistent blare of an alarm cut through the hall. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the mess hall in urgent crimson. SEALs immediately dropped trays, scrambling to their feet. Commander Reynolds barked orders, instantly transforming the room from a scene of tense curiosity into disciplined urgency. Harper's mind switched gears instantly. The calm confidence remained, but now it was augmented with readiness, a surge of adrenaline tempered by experience. She didn't wait for instructions. She moved, assessing exits, positioning herself instinctively, calculating the steps of both allies and potential threats. Daniels, caught off guard, followed her movements, trying to keep pace. The other SEALs, veteran or rookie alike, instinctively recognized her instincts, her tactical mind at work in real time. Harper's declaration earlier, that she outranked him in experience, was no longer just words. It was action, alive and undeniable, displayed in every movement, every decision in the chaotic, flashing mess hall. The alarm continued, echoing through the halls. The whispers of admiration had transformed into palpable anticipation. This rookie wasn't just capable of words, she was capable of action. And the room, previously divided between skepticism and curiosity, now watched her as a leader in waiting. Harper glanced briefly at Daniels, her expression unreadable. He met her gaze, eyes wide, realizing that her experience wasn't just history. It was living, breathing skill ready to be deployed in the moments that mattered most. The alarm blared like a war horn, echoing off the mess hall walls. SEALs dropped trays, the clatter of metal hitting linoleum punctuating the chaos. Red lights flashed in rapid succession, bathing the room in an ominous glow. Commander Reynolds barked orders, sharp and decisive. "Lockdown now, positions." Harper reacted instantly. Years of combat experience surged through her instincts. She didn't hesitate. Her eyes scanned exits, windows, and corners, calculating movement patterns for every teammate. Even though she was technically a rookie at the base, her mind processed threats with the precision of a seasoned operator. Every SEAL in the room subconsciously took cues from her, following her subtle signals. Daniels stumbled over, trying to take command. What's the plan?" he asked, voice tense. Harper shot him a glance, calm, unwavering, commanding, and nodded subtly toward the nearest access corridor. He paused, realizing that despite his rank and time here, she had already formulated the strategy. He swallowed, wordless. The mess hall, once a place of chatter and laughter, had transformed into a battlefield. SEALs took positions near doorways and tables, weapons ready. Some were seasoned veterans, some were rookies like Harper had been weeks ago. All of them, however, instinctively recognized the aura of authority that she exuded. Every step, every subtle motion she made communicated a plan. The whispers of admiration earlier were replaced by tension. Some SEALs, hardened by years of deployment, glanced at Harper in disbelief. She wasn't just reacting. She was predicting, guiding, commanding without a single raised voice. Her eyes flicked to Daniels again, who was now fully alert, his usual bravado stripped away. He realized she had become the focal point, the operator they would follow in this crisis. "Secure the rear exit," Harper instructed calmly, voice steady. Not a demand, not a question, simply a statement that left no room for argument. SEALs obeyed instantly, moving with silent efficiency. Her instructions were sparse, precise, and delivered with a presence that radiated confidence. She didn't shout, she didn't need to. Her command came from certainty, not volume. The hall's energy shifted. SEALs were no longer panicking. They were methodically preparing, moving into positions that Harper had assessed in seconds. They checked corners, covered sightlines, and synchronized their movements. Even Daniels, normally quick to act, found himself deferring to her judgment, trusting the instincts that had earned her respect earlier that morning. A distant thud echoed from the corridor. Heads snapped toward the sound. Harper signaled with a subtle nod, and the SEALs tightened their formation, moving silently toward the source. Every muscle in her body was alert, every sense heightened. Years of missions had honed her instincts, and now they were fully engaged. She could feel the tension in the air, smell the faint metallic scent of fear mingling with adrenaline. Reynolds watched from the entrance, expression unreadable. He had trained SEALs for decades, witnessed countless rookies falter under stress, and seen some crumble under pressure. Harper, however, moved with a composure that rivaled seasoned operators. She wasn't just reacting, she was controlling the environment. She was calm, decisive, and lethal in the precision of her commands. The distant thud repeated, louder this time, followed by the unmistakable sound of movement. Someone was trying to breach the inner corridor. Harper's eyes narrowed. She gestured to a table near the main entrance, motioning for Daniels to cover the flank. He obeyed instantly, though his heart raced. He had trained for situations like this, but there was something different about Harper, an unspoken assurance that whatever came next, she had already accounted for it. The other SEALs positioned themselves, ready for confrontation. Weapons were raised, fingers tensed on triggers. Harper's calm voice cut through the tension. Eyes on every doorway, no unnecessary movement. Watch patterns, predict, don't react. Her words were succinct, efficient, and impossible to ignore. They followed instinctively, as if trained to do so, even though Harper had only been at the base for a few months. Time stretched. Every second felt elongated. The mess hall, once a place of routine, was now a crucible. The flashing red lights reflected off polished floors, bouncing across faces etched with focus and anticipation. SEALs whispered to each other under their breath, scanning, calculating. Every movement was deliberate, every heartbeat was measured, and all eyes were subtly, unconsciously on Harper. Then a shadow moved near the far corridor. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but Harper noticed. Her hand shot up, a simple gesture directing a SEAL toward the path. Daniels stiffened, realizing she had already spotted the threat, predicting its trajectory before anyone else had a clue. The intruder, or whatever it was being funneled into the exact position Harper had anticipated. A sudden metallic clang echoed, louder this time, signaling the intruder's proximity. SEALs stiffened, muscles coiled, ready to react. Harper's voice remained calm. Engage if necessary, but control your movements. Don't make noise until you have a shot. Every word was deliberate, a command to keep focus, to maintain control, to minimize risk. The intruder stepped into view, masked and armed. Harper didn't flinch. She moved with uncanny precision, positioning SEALs to intercept while minimizing exposure. Daniels followed her instructions, still half in awe, still half shaken by how easily she had taken command. The shadow hesitated, unaware that it had walked into a controlled trap. Harper's eyes flicked from the intruder to her team, calculating, predicting, adjusting. Every SEAL was in position, silent but ready. The mess hall, moments ago filled with chaos, was now a tense arena. Every SEAL from veteran to rookie was focused, breathing controlled, instincts sharpened. Harper had transformed a room of uncertainty into an orchestrated unit ready for precision action. Harper's eyes locked on the intruder as he froze mid-step, realizing he had been outmaneuvered. His weapon trembled in his hands. Time slowed in the mess hall. The flashing red lights cast harsh shadows, illuminating every tense face. SEALs held their positions, muscles taut, breaths controlled. Harper didn't shout, didn't gesture excessively. Her calm authority directed every movement. The intruder had stepped into a trap carefully orchestrated in seconds, and he knew it. Daniels crouched slightly behind a table, weapon ready, sweat beading his forehead. He could barely believe what was unfolding. The rookie he had teased earlier that morning was now the unspoken leader in the room. Each of her subtle hand signals, each adjustment of stance, commanded precision and compliance. SEALs followed without question, instinctively understanding her strategy. Harper had transformed an ordinary mess hall into a controlled tactical environment in moments. The intruder tried to backtrack, eyes darting around for an escape. Harper's gaze never wavered. Her mind raced, calculating probabilities, analyzing angles, predicting his every move. The intruder's training, if he had any, was amateur compared to the instincts Harper displayed effortlessly. Her experience was tangible, a force that seemed to radiate from her very being, demanding attention and respect. Even Daniels could not mask his astonishment. Suddenly, the intruder lunged toward the nearest exit. Harper reacted instantly, directing two SEALs with a swift hand gesture. They intercepted him, pinning him against the wall with minimal noise. Another SEAL moved to secure the weapon. The intruder struggled, but Harper's team executed flawlessly, guided by her calm commands. No chaos, no mistakes, only precise execution. Daniels exhaled, lowering his weapon slightly. How are you doing this?" he whispered, awe evident in his voice. Harper shot him a glance, calm, unreadable, almost amused. She didn't answer verbally. Her expression alone conveyed authority. This was not improvisation. This was instinct forged by countless hours in combat, decisions made under life-or-death pressure, refined into seamless precision. Commander Reynolds stepped closer, observing silently. His eyes narrowed as he assessed Harper's tactics. He had trained operators who struggled to manage a single corridor, let alone a room filled with highly trained SEALs, each expecting command from someone senior. Harper was different. She orchestrated movements, anticipated threats, and maintained a calm presence that steadied the team. Reynolds' respect, long earned by decades of leadership, was evident in the slight nod he gave her. As the intruder was restrained, the tension in the hall slowly began to dissipate, though the adrenaline still hummed in the air. SEALs began murmuring, their whispers tinged with disbelief and admiration. "She's amazing. Did you see that? Where did she learn that?" The rookie who had been teased just hours ago was now the subject of hushed reverence. Harper's composure never wavered. Her calm, measured actions had transformed chaos into control, earning the respect of everyone present. Daniels finally stepped forward, clearing his throat. I underestimated you," he admitted, voice low but sincere. Harper gave him a small nod, acknowledging the concession without comment. She didn't need to boast. Her actions had spoken louder than any words. In that moment, she wasn't just a rookie. She was a tactician, a leader, a force to be reckoned with. Reynolds addressed the room, his voice steady and commanding. "This rookie has demonstrated exceptional tactical awareness and leadership under pressure. Take note." The hall absorbed the statement like a wave, the weight of the words settling in. SEALs straightened, some exchanging glances that mixed surprise with respect. Harper's reputation had shifted irreversibly. Yet as the immediate threat was neutralized, a subtle tension lingered. Harper's mind never stopped assessing. Something about the intruder didn't add up: the timing, the precision of his approach, the way he had moved. It wasn't a random act. It had the hallmarks of a trained operative, someone with purpose and strategy. She signaled subtly to Daniels, indicating that the situation wasn't over. He followed the silent direction, understanding her instincts even if he couldn't yet articulate them. Harper moved toward the restrained intruder, her stance controlled but commanding. "Who sent you?" she asked quietly, voice calm but piercing. The intruder remained silent, his eyes flicking nervously to the other SEALs. Harper's gaze didn't falter. She could see fear, training, and hesitation all at once, and she knew how to exploit it without unnecessary violence. She had done this before countless times in far more dangerous circumstances. Reynolds watched closely, his expression unreadable. He had seen rookies falter in less intense situations, and he had seen veterans freeze when a plan went sideways. Harper, however, was neither rookie nor ordinary operator. She was a calculated force, one who could assess, command, and act decisively under extreme pressure. Her legend, though unknown to many in the room, was unfolding now in real time. As the intruder was finally secured and restrained, the SEALs began to relax slightly, still on high alert but following Harper's lead. The room, which had been filled with whispers of disbelief, now resonated with respect. Daniels exhaled heavily, lowering his weapon completely. I didn't know a rookie could do that," he muttered. Harper gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod. She had no need for words, the impact of her actions was enough. Whispers began circulating quickly among the SEALs. The story of Harper's past missions, her courage, and her tactical brilliance seemed to fill the room silently. Even without explicit confirmation, her reputation grew with every glance and murmured acknowledgement. She had turned skepticism into admiration, teasing into respect, chaos into control, all in one seamless display of skill and leadership. Yet Harper knew better than to relax. The intruder was only one threat, a distraction from a potentially larger operation. Her instincts, honed in countless battles, whispered that this was the calm before the storm. She glanced at Daniels and the other SEALs, silently signaling readiness. They understood. The tension returned, sharper, more controlled, as Harper prepared for whatever would come next. The mess hall was silent, the only sounds the heavy breathing of the SEALs and the faint hum of the alarm. Harper's eyes scanned the perimeter. The intruder had been neutralized, but her instincts screamed that this was far from over. Subtle movements in the shadows, nearly invisible to everyone else, hinted at a second threat, someone trained, deliberate, and dangerous. Harper's mind raced, calculating probabilities, angles, and responses in seconds. "Check the rear corridor. Now," she ordered calmly. Her voice carried authority, concise and precise, leaving no room for hesitation. SEALs immediately obeyed, moving as one unit, eyes sharp, bodies tense. Harper didn't raise her weapon yet. She preferred observation first, action second, a discipline born from countless missions where one false move meant death. Daniels followed her lead, adjusting his stance, scanning potential entry points. His pride had been challenged earlier, and now he deferred fully to Harper's command. He noticed how the other SEALs, even veterans, instinctively fell into her rhythm, waiting for her subtle gestures, reading her eyes for guidance. Harper's presence had transformed a chaotic alarm into a coordinated response, and everyone felt it. A faint metallic click echoed from the rear corridor. Harper's gaze sharpened. Her hand rose slightly, signaling two SEALs to flank. Every movement was precise, every action deliberate. She had spent years reading environments, predicting human behavior, and reacting faster than most could comprehend. This was instinct and experience combined, a lethal combination. The shadow shifted again. Harper's eyes followed, anticipating the intruder's path before he made it. She adjusted positions silently, guiding her team with subtle nods and gestures. Daniels realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. Harper had trained in environments far more dangerous than this base, and now that experience was saving lives in real time. Suddenly, the hidden threat moved into view, a masked figure armed and deliberate. Harper didn't flinch. She raised her hand, signaling the team to halt. The intruder froze, unaware that he had walked into a controlled ambush. Harper's mind calculated every possibility, exit routes, weapon positions, team angles. She was predicting every move, controlling the situation without a single unnecessary motion. "Contain him, non-lethal if possible," Harper instructed. Her calm voice contrasted with the tension, directing action without shouting. Two SEALs moved in with precision, corners covered, weapons ready. The intruder hesitated, realizing too late that he had no options. Every route Harper had anticipated was sealed, every movement controlled. A sudden flash of movement startled one of the SEALs. Harper pivoted instantly, guiding the team with fluid gestures. Her eyes flicked to Daniels, silently communicating the plan. He understood immediately and adjusted his stance. The intruder, realizing he was outmaneuvered, attempted a desperate lunge toward an exit. Harper's reaction was instantaneous, a combination of muscle memory and pure instinct honed in combat zones far beyond this base. The team intercepted him, executing Harper's plan flawlessly. He was restrained without a shot fired. Harper's calm, measured approach had prevented unnecessary violence while maintaining control. The SEALs exhaled collectively, some shaking from adrenaline, some staring in awe. Daniels lowered his weapon slowly, glancing at Harper with a mix of respect and disbelief. She had commanded the situation effortlessly, turning potential disaster into controlled resolution. But Harper wasn't done. Her instincts screamed that the intruder was only a distraction. Something larger was at play. The way he moved, the precision of his approach, it wasn't random. Harper signaled subtly to her team, guiding them to secondary positions, readying for any additional threats. SEALs followed without question, fully trusting her judgment. Commander Reynolds observed silently, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He had seen elite operators handle crises, but Harper's performance was exceptional. She wasn't just reacting, she was anticipating, leading, and controlling. Her experience, her calm, and her tactical precision had transformed the mess hall into a strategic command center in seconds. Harper approached the restrained intruder, her movements fluid, precise, and deliberate. "Who sent you?" she asked quietly, her tone piercing yet controlled. The intruder hesitated, eyes darting to the other SEALs, clearly weighing options. Harper's gaze remained fixed on him, unyielding. She could see the fear, the hesitation, the calculation, and she knew exactly how to exploit it if needed. As the intruder remained silent, Harper signaled Daniels to sweep the far corridor. They moved as a coordinated unit, silent and efficient. Every SEAL understood the plan. Harper's presence alone had aligned the entire team, creating a synergy rarely seen even among seasoned operators. The tension in the air was thick, every heartbeat synchronized with the anticipation of what might come next. Suddenly, a faint movement in the ventilation shaft caught Harper's attention. She narrowed her eyes, calculating angles, timing, and the potential threat. "Eyes up," she warned softly. Two SEALs positioned themselves strategically, covering the overhead path. Harper's instincts, honed through years of high-risk missions, had already predicted the intruder's next potential move. The intruder struggled briefly, then went still, realizing the futility of resistance. Harper remained calm, her eyes scanning, aware that this was only the beginning. She knew that every detail mattered. The smallest misstep could escalate into catastrophe. Her presence, her experience, and her tactical genius were the line between order and chaos. As the team maintained their positions, Harper glanced at Daniels. He nodded, understanding that the crisis was far from over. The secondary threat, the intruder's unknown accomplices, and potential hidden dangers still loomed. Harper's calm authority and calculated movements had saved lives, but the mission, and the test, was only halfway through. Harper's eyes flicked to the shadow near the kitchen entrance, the faint movement barely perceptible under the harsh red lights of the alarm. Her body tensed, every muscle ready. The secondary threat was here, deliberate and trained, and Harper knew this was more than a simple intrusion. It was a test of instinct, precision, and control. She gestured subtly to Daniels, guiding him toward a flanking position. The other SEALs adjusted silently, following her unspoken commands. Every movement was calculated, every breath measured. The intruder's accomplice stepped forward, a figure masked, weapon raised. Harper's team froze, but she remained calm. She had anticipated this moment. Her mind worked rapidly, analyzing angles, escape routes, and reaction times. She knew the team's strengths and weaknesses instinctively. Harper's movements were fluid, almost graceful, a silent choreography of lethal precision. Daniels, still in awe, whispered under his breath, She knows exactly what's coming." Harper shot him a glance, calm, unreadable, but encouraging. She didn't need to explain. Her presence alone communicated strategy, and the SEALs moved as one unit, synchronized, their trust implicit. The secondary threat advanced cautiously, testing the perimeter. Harper's eyes tracked every motion, every twitch, every subtle indication of intent. She gestured toward two SEALs near the windows, directing them to reposition silently. Another nod to Daniels instructed him to cover the flank. The intruder moved like a predator, confident, but unaware of the trap Harper had orchestrated in seconds. A sudden click echoed. The intruder had triggered a silent alarm on his vest. Harper didn't flinch. Her mind raced, predicting his next move before he could act. "Positions," she commanded softly. SEALs adjusted instantaneously. Harper had turned the mess hall into a strategic arena. Every table, every chair, every exit became part of the defensive grid she had envisioned. The intruder lunged toward the main corridor. Harper's hand rose in a subtle, precise gesture, directing two SEALs to intercept him silently. They moved with uncanny synchronization, covering every angle. Daniels followed, now fully attuned to Harper's rhythm. She wasn't improvising. She was executing a plan honed by experience, instinct, and countless high-risk missions. The accomplice hesitated, realizing the room was no longer just a mess hall. It was a trap. Harper's presence was magnetic, controlling, decisive. Every SEAL's position, every angle of attack, every silent instruction had funneled the intruder exactly where she wanted. Time seemed to slow. Even the flashing lights and blaring alarms couldn't disrupt the precision she commanded. Harper advanced slightly, eyes locked on the intruder. Her voice was calm, authoritative. "Drop the weapon, now!" The accomplice faltered, weighing his options. In that pause, Harper's mind calculated probabilities, paths of escape, reaction times, backup contingencies. She had planned for every scenario. The room seemed to hold its collective breath. A sudden movement, a subtle shift in the shadow, tested Harper's attention. She pivoted instantly, signaling the nearest SEAL to cover the angle. Every action was seamless. The intruder, now aware he was outmatched, made a desperate move toward the ventilation shaft. Harper anticipated it immediately. She raised her hand subtly, directing another SEAL to intercept. The intruder's path was blocked at every turn. Daniels whispered, barely audible, "It's like she can see the future." Harper's eyes flicked toward him briefly, a small smirk barely perceptible. She didn't need to speak. Her instinctive control over the chaos communicated more than words ever could. SEALs, veterans, and rookies alike moved with precision, synchronized perfectly under her quiet command. The intruder lunged toward the central corridor, but Harper had already anticipated his trajectory. She signaled a SEAL to block, another to flank, and yet another to cover the rear. In seconds, the intruder was surrounded, restrained without a shot fired. The calm authority Harper exuded had controlled the situation, turning potential disaster into a flawless tactical success. Daniels exhaled, lowering his weapon. "I've never seen anything like that," he muttered. Harper remained composed, her focus already shifting. She didn't celebrate, she didn't gloat. She knew the mission wasn't over. Every subtle cue she noticed, the intruder's hesitation, the faint scent of chemical residue, the irregularity of his movements, told her there might be more waiting beyond the mess hall. Reynolds observed silently, impressed. Harper had taken a chaotic alarm, neutralized the intruder, managed a secondary threat, and maintained perfect control over her team. He had trained operators who faltered under half this pressure. Harper had orchestrated a controlled, precise response, earning the respect of every SEAL present. Harper glanced briefly at Daniels, her gaze conveying one thought: stay ready. The intruder's accomplice had been contained, but subtle signs, movement near the ventilation, patterns in the shadows, indicated a larger operation. Harper's instincts, honed through countless high-risk missions, told her the danger was not over. The mess hall, once a scene of chaotic energy, had become a controlled battlefield. SEALs moved with confidence under Harper's guidance. Even the rookies had learned to follow her lead instinctively. Daniels, humbled and attentive, realized that her calm presence, tactical brilliance, and predictive instincts were unmatched. Harper wasn't just leading by rank, she was leading by experience, instinct, and sheer competence. Suddenly, a faint metallic scrape echoed from the ceiling vent. Harper froze, analyzing the sound. Her eyes narrowed. "Cover the ceiling," she commanded quietly. Two SEALs moved into position, weapons raised, anticipating movement. Harper's mind calculated angles, probabilities, and responses in milliseconds. Every contingency had been accounted for. The secondary threat had become tertiary, and Harper had already anticipated it. Time slowed in the mess hall. Every SEAL was alert, poised, synchronized under Harper's direction. The intruder was restrained, the accomplice neutralized, yet Harper's focus never wavered. She scanned every shadow, every corner, every reflective surface. Her instincts screamed danger, and her actions demonstrated mastery. The room, filled with seasoned operators, recognized a truth they rarely encountered. Harper was extraordinary. Harper's eyes locked on the vent above. A shadow moved deliberately, betraying the presence of the hidden accomplice. Time slowed in her mind, the chaos of the mess hall distilled into a single sequence of movements. Every SEAL was poised, following her unspoken guidance. Her instincts, honed through countless missions, took over. There was no panic, only precision, focus, and a ruthless clarity. "Cover the main exit and corridors," she instructed calmly, her voice cutting through the tension like steel. SEALs shifted seamlessly, weapons raised, moving in perfect synchronization. Daniels mirrored her movements, now fully aware of her mastery, his earlier pride replaced by awe. Even the veterans recognized the subtle authority she exuded. Harper didn't just lead, she commanded respect without raising her voice. The intruder above shifted, testing the vent's strength. Harper calculated trajectory and timing instantly. She signaled to one of the SEALs near the serving line, who positioned a tactical net and harness system. Every movement was choreographed, yet executed instinctively. Harper's mind ran multiple scenarios in seconds. What if the vent collapsed? What if the intruder jumped? What if another threat emerged? Each contingency was met before it happened. Suddenly, the intruder attempted a jump down toward the mess hall. Harper reacted instantly, directing a SEAL to intercept while covering the potential landing zone herself. Time seemed elastic. The intruder hit the floor with a clatter, expecting chaos, but met the steel discipline of Harper's unit. He was restrained immediately, a testament to the team's coordination under her command. Daniels watched, stunned, as Harper moved like a force of nature. Every motion was purposeful, every decision calculated, every signal clear. How does she see everything at once?" he whispered under his breath. Harper's gaze flicked toward him briefly, a subtle acknowledgement, but no words. She didn't need them. Her actions were teaching, guiding, and commanding all at once. Commander Reynolds stepped closer, observing the orchestration with measured eyes. He had seen operators handle life-and-death situations, but Harper's performance was exceptional. Not only had she neutralized multiple threats, she had anticipated movements, controlled her team flawlessly, and preserved lives. She was a living example of skill meeting instinct and experience. The final intruder struggled, realizing he had no escape. Harper approached slowly, weapon ready but controlled. "Drop it," she instructed calmly, voice low but piercing. The intruder hesitated, gauging the team, realizing resistance was futile. Harper's presence was magnetic, her authority undeniable. Without raising her weapon, she had neutralized the threat. SEALs moved to secure the room fully. The adrenaline-fueled tension gradually subsided, replaced by quiet awe. Daniels exhaled, lowering his weapon completely. He couldn't hide the mixture of amazement and humility in his expression. That was, he stammered. Harper gave a small, composed nod, a quiet acknowledgement of his reaction. Reynolds finally spoke, his tone carrying both relief and respect. Petty Officer Harper, your performance today has demonstrated exceptional skill, leadership, and composure under extreme pressure. You've earned the respect of every SEAL in this hall. The words rippled through the mess hall, amplified by the weight of Reynolds' authority. SEALs exchanged glances, some nodding, others simply staring, still absorbing what had just occurred. Harper allowed herself a brief exhale, scanning the room. The intruders were contained, the immediate danger neutralized, but she remained alert. Her instincts never allowed her to relax fully until every potential threat was accounted for. She moved among her team, checking positions, observing reactions, and ensuring all angles were secure. Even in victory, she remained vigilant. Daniels approached her quietly. "I underestimated you," he admitted, voice low, full of humility. Harper's response was measured, a subtle nod, almost imperceptible. She didn't need to lecture or boast. Her actions had spoken louder than any words could. The team had witnessed it firsthand, and the respect earned could not be disputed. The other SEALs, some veterans who had scoffed at her earlier, now approached with quiet acknowledgement. Their whispers, once filled with doubt, were now tinged with admiration. Harper had transformed perceptions, proving that true authority was earned through skill, composure, and action, not merely rank or tenure. Even the rookies, who had been observing quietly, now held a mixture of awe and inspiration in their eyes. Harper had demonstrated leadership not through intimidation, but through competence and confidence. Every move she had made was precise, every decision calculated, and every signal interpreted by her team flawlessly. Reynolds finally approached Harper directly, his expression unreadable but approving. "You've handled more than most operators face in a year," he said quietly. "Remember this, leadership isn't about rank, it's about presence, decisions, and action. Today you proved all three." Harper nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. The mess hall, once filled with chaos and teasing, had transformed into a scene of controlled professionalism. The red lights still flashed, the alarm still blaring faintly, but the tension was gone. It had been replaced by respect, admiration, and an unspoken understanding of Harper's extraordinary capabilities. As Harper settled briefly, surveying her team, she noticed Daniels lingering. He looked at her differently now, not just a rookie, not just a colleague, but as someone whose instincts and experience were undeniable. Harper's journey at the base had begun with whispers and skepticism, but today she had proven that legends aren't born, they are forged under pressure. The faint vibration under the floorboards made Harper freeze. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the mess hall once more. Every intruder they had neutralized so far had been a warning, a test of reflexes, instincts, and command. This subtle, almost imperceptible signal told her that the threat was not yet over. The adrenaline in her veins surged anew, sharp and precise. Every SEAL in the hall instinctively mirrored her alertness, sensing the tension shift. Daniels moved slightly closer, whispering, "Another one?" Harper didn't respond. Her gaze swept the room, assessing every angle, every shadow. Years of combat had trained her to react without hesitation. She didn't need words, her team understood. The vibrations were too controlled to be accidental. It was a planted device, a tactical distraction designed to test the perimeter and the team's readiness. Reynolds stepped forward, observing silently. Even he recognized the subtle signals Harper had picked up. Most operators would have missed it, but Harper's instincts, honed under life-or-death conditions far beyond the base, were razor-sharp. Every breath, every movement, every instinctive calculation gave her an edge that few could match. "Check the floor and perimeter immediately. Stay sharp," Harper ordered calmly. Her voice carried authority that demanded precision, but there was no panic. SEALs moved as a single, cohesive unit, each trusting her leadership implicitly. Daniels followed her lead, aware that her tactical mind was now guiding every move. The vibration grew slightly, a faint rhythmic pulse. Harper crouched subtly, eyes scanning for origin points. Her experience told her to stay calm, observe, and anticipate. She signaled two SEALs to take positions near the kitchen and storage corridors while she moved toward the area of concern. Every step was deliberate, controlled, and tactical. Seconds later, Harper spotted the device, a small, metallic timer-like construct partially hidden beneath a service panel. Her mind raced. The base's protocol for such devices was strict, but her experience told her she could disarm it faster. She gestured subtly to a SEAL behind her to maintain security while she approached. Every SEAL was in position, covering angles, ready for an escalation. Daniels whispered, "You're going to?" Harper's glance told him to trust her instincts. She wasn't reckless, she was calculating. One wrong move could trigger the device, but her hands moved confidently, fingers precise, dissecting the mechanism. Her knowledge of explosives, combined with battlefield experience, gave her a rhythm born from countless missions where hesitation was fatal. Minutes or perhaps seconds, it was impossible to tell, passed with excruciating tension. Every SEAL was motionless, silent, holding their breath as Harper manipulated the device. The red lights of the alarm reflected off her focused eyes, highlighting the calm determination that had carried her through every challenge today. The team had learned to trust her implicitly, knowing that her decisions were flawless, her instincts unmatched. Finally, Harper's hands found the critical component. With a deliberate motion, she disarmed the device. The faint hum of the vibration ceased. Harper exhaled quietly, signaling the SEALs to relax their positions slightly. The threat was neutralized, not just the intruders, but the hidden danger that had tested the base's defenses and her leadership. Daniels exhaled heavily. That was incredible," he said. Harper simply nodded, composed, as though it had been routine. But the room knew better. Every SEAL, from the rookies to the seasoned veterans, recognized that they had witnessed something extraordinary. A rookie who had become the center of command, calm under pressure, decisive and flawless. Reynolds stepped forward, his face breaking into a rare smile. "Petty Officer Harper," he said, voice echoing with authority and approval, "today you've demonstrated leadership, tactical brilliance, and courage that surpasses most seasoned operators. You didn't just neutralize threats. You commanded respect and coordinated an entire unit under extreme pressure. You've set a standard here that will not be forgotten." Harper allowed herself a brief smile, but only for a moment. Leadership wasn't about accolades. It was about execution, precision, and responsibility. Today, she had proven herself not with words, but with flawless action. The SEALs around her began to nod, some murmuring quietly, others openly acknowledging the skill they had just witnessed. Harper had earned their respect not as a rookie, but as an operator whose instincts and experience were undeniable. Daniels approached her, eyes wide, voice sincere. I owe you my respect. You're not just a rookie, you're a force to be reckoned with." Harper met his gaze briefly, a quiet nod acknowledging the sentiment. No words were necessary. The respect had been earned through action, not conversation. The mess hall, once filled with chaos, uncertainty, and skepticism, now hummed with quiet admiration. The intruders were neutralized, the hidden device disarmed, and the team secure. Harper's calm authority had transformed the environment from panic into precision, from chaos into order. She had led by instinct, skill, and experience, proving that true leadership transcends rank. Even the rookies, wide-eyed and inspired, understood that Harper's actions were lessons in courage, strategy, and control. Reynolds' approval echoed silently in their minds, a confirmation that they had witnessed a performance worthy of legend. Harper's presence had shifted the hierarchy, not through intimidation, but through undeniable competence. As the alarm finally ceased and the lights returned to normal, Harper surveyed her team. SEALs straightened, returning to protocol, but the energy in the room had irrevocably changed. She had proven herself not only to Reynolds and Daniels, but to every operator in the mess hall. Today, a rookie had become a legend. Final moment, Harper glanced at Daniels one last time, eyes calm, confident, and unreadable. "Stay ready," she said softly. Though the immediate threat was gone, her vigilance remained. Today had tested her skills, instincts, and leadership. She had passed with precision. The story of her day, her calm in chaos, her mastery under pressure, her command without arrogance would be told and retold. Harper had not just survived the test, she had cemented her place among the elite. The SEALs returned to their routines, but the legend of Petty Officer Harper, the rookie who commanded respect and neutralized threats with unparalleled skill, had been born. And from this day forward, every whisper, every glance, every story about the mess hall would carry the quiet, undeniable truth. Harper was extraordinary.